A very good morning, everyone. I hope that you're doing well. At the same time, you are taking a good care of yourself. So welcome to the very last class for CIN 628 for the summer of 2021 and also 2022. We've just talked over probably via communication or via email, and I've been communicating with you in terms of lecture recording. So this is the first time I am conducting a Zoom face-to-face based class. Okay, so in this case, what we will be doing in today's class is that we will be going over some revision questions. So just before we go over those revision questions, I quickly have some reminders that I wanted to give it out to you. First of all, your major project is due on the 21st of 21st of January. So if I would take you directly onto the Moodle shell, so your major project, okay, here you go. Okay, it's due on the 21st. Okay, so 21st is, by the way, next week, Friday. Yep, it's next week, Friday. And also note that next week, Friday is also the, give me a second, just to share the screen. All right, so it's due on the 21st of January, that is next week Friday, and next week Friday is also the very last day for your online final examinations. So in this case, what you will have to do is you will have to ensure that you're using your time very, very well. Okay, so you have, today is Friday, and then you have weekend, and then you have the other remaining 5 days to get everything sorted out. So please try your best to get yourself timetabled and also to use your time well to get all these assessments sorted out as quickly as possible. Okay. Moreover, if you are someone who still have pending assessments, so when I say pending assessments, I'm most definitely referring to project one. Mid-semester exam, unfortunately, we will not be able to take in requests for mid-semester exam unless there's a very, very genuine case. Okay, genuine case as in like somebody was really sick or somebody was really affected because of COVID. So we will take in those scenarios, but if you have missed your mid-semester exam, generally we do not give supplementary assessment for online exams. Project one, if you're still pending on your project one, we will be accepting your project one. Okay, it's just that you'll have some minor deductions coming in just to be fair on those who have submitted their assessments on time. All right. Moreover, please note that your mid-semester exams, as per some of your requests yesterday and day before yesterday, some of you sent me a message, some of you have written to the HOD. I have regraded your mid-semester exams, so you should be able to see some changes. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes the changes that took place after the regrading of mid-semester exam, you may have fluctuations in the mark. Some of you may have increased marks, some of you may have decreased marks. I've not seen a situation where there is a decreased mark, but just in case, if you see your mark has decreased, so it's because of the regrading structure. Pardon me. Now, also note that in yesterday's recording, which is here, I have done a sort of a mini summary of the entire course. I've tried my best with the limited resources at the moment and also with the limited time. I've tried my very best to cover everything as much as possible from the course. So please do go and refer to the video if you haven't. Those of you if you have, then you would find it very, very easy together with the revision questions to work with or to revise for your final examinations. Moreover, the very last reminder that I have is your final exams. Your final exams are supposed to be hosted next week from the 17th to the 21st. That is from next week Monday till next week Friday. out of which you have 3 segments. Segment 1, multiple choice, together with some true or false questions. Segment 2, short answer questions. And your segment 3 is web-based programming. Now, segment 1 and 2, they have time limitations. You'll be given certain time, and within the time frame, you need to complete that. For your last segment, segment 3, it will be treated like an assignment. You'll be given a complete 1 week to go and view the questions beforehand and submit it by the end of the deadline. So that will make your work easier. Now, do note that when you have assignments, you are allowed to do research over the web, and I would suggest do so. Okay, but ensure do not directly copy and paste from the web, because there is a minimum of 20%. Sorry, there's a maximum of 20% plagiarism rate. That means you cannot go beyond 20%. If you do, you'll have marked directions. All right. Now, before we continue with the revision questions, is there any questions or queries from your end? I'll give you a minute. If you have questions or queries, feel free to ask. Okay, if there aren't any questions or queries, so let's continue with the revision questions. Now, this is how I've planned out that I will be giving out the revision question. Remember, we only have about 2 hours, and I have close to about 50 plus questions with me. So I will be giving you out the questions. Okay, your questions are very much in relation to the course summary that I've given yesterday. Some of the things may be foreign from the summary. Why foreign is because it may be extension of it, or it may be some of these supplementary elements from the entire course. So I will be giving out the questions. So from the questions, please do try your best to answer all of them and use this as a revision guide. All right. Now, together with this, if you want to prepare very, very well, if you want to ensure that you score close to about 70 plus or more in the online final assessment, you'll have to go and have a keen look at all your labs. Okay. I didn't think you have tutorials, did you? No, you didn't have tutorials. So most you have was your labs. I would suggest also to go and have a good look at your labs, especially HTML, CSS, PHP, and MySQL. Moreover, your project 1 and your major assignments, they will also play a very key role in your online final assessment, especially the programming section. All right, so use these guides. Let me repeat it again. So your course summary, together with the revision questions that I'm giving in, your labs, and also your assignments. If you're able to revise all these things very, very well, believe me, you'll score 70 plus in your online final assessments. And please ensure, do not panic. Okay, try to keep yourself steady in the game in terms of planning out yourself very, very well, so that you are able to revise well and grasp the concepts very easily. I do understand summer courses are quite intense. Every day you have new syllabus coming in, okay? But that's the main purpose of summer. Like within a short span of time, you're able to cover up a lot of things. All right, so let's continue. So what I'll be doing is I'll be calling out the revision questions, and just to make it easy for you, I'll also be writing it down in a Word document. So I would suggest if you have a pen or paper in front of you, if you don't, grab it quickly, or even you can use, if you have a laptop or using a desktop PC, open a Microsoft Word or Notepad and start writing down the questions. All right, so I will quickly switch off the video to have a very stable connection. All right, and you are able to see my work document. Yes, you are. Okay, if you aren't, let me know. Okay, so CN 628 revision questions, summer 2021-2022. So question number 1, the very first question is define HTML. Now, when you're defining HTML, please ensure do not just say hypertext markup language. That is giving the long form from the acronym, and that is not the definition. Defining HTML would mean is, what is HTML? What does it do? What are some of the uses? Okay, you can state it something like that. Question number 2, write down the HTML skeleton or slash structure. Now, HTML skeleton or structure, they mean the same thing, okay? Now, this is where when you must have actually first started coding with HTML, you would have started with opening HTML tag, and at the very bottom, you have a closing HTML tag. In between, you have head tags. Between head tags, you have title tags, and then you have body tag, and in between body tag, that's where you put in your HTML elements and tags. Okay, so that is the basic HTML skeleton, and you should be well aware of it by now. So question number 2 was write down the HTML skeleton or structure. Question number 3, explain a web browser and its relationship with HTML. Explain a web browser and its relationship with HTML. So in this case, first of all, you will go and define what a web browser is. Okay, so web browser basically, if you're using Google Chrome, so Google Chrome is a web browser. So what does it do? It basically displays web pages or websites. Okay, and what is its relationship with HTML? So the relationship generally is HTML. It builds up the structure of the website, it codes a website, and the web browser displays it on the web. Pretty simple. Question number 4, define client application. Question number 4, define client application. Now, do notice I'm not putting on the question in a very fancy manner. Sometimes, because at level 6, generally we analyze, evaluate, explain, and have all the other sorts of learning outcomes. But what I'm doing here is I'm trying to keep things simple so that you are able to focus on the key elements. For example, question number 4, define client application. So your focus is on client application. Okay, so I'm keeping the question simple so that you go and grasp the concepts easily. Okay, now do note these verbs such as define, okay, explain. There's a big difference between the two. Define is you're giving a very simple definition, okay, or simple sort of like a statement, whereas explain, you will basically go and do a brief or detailed write-up about something. Okay, so I think you should be familiar with this by now. This is level 6, 600 level. Okay. Question number 5, differentiate between a static and a dynamic website. Question number 5, differentiate between a static and a dynamic website. Now, we have websites, okay? Websites are basically, websites is a combination of web pages. So you design a web page, you combine all those web pages together, you form a website. Now, your websites generally come in 2 forms. They come in a static form, or they come in a dynamic form. So static form is generally for information dissemination. When you talk about information dissemination, I think the class on Ajax, I've talked about this. pgvillage.com is an example of a static website, whereby all you do is you're viewing the content of that particular website. Dynamic website, on the other hand, is whereby your website is interactive, it is intuitive, and the only way it is intuitive or interactive is through the connection of a database or with a connection with the server. Okay, so your dynamic websites, they are interactive. And a very good example would be Facebook, you have Instagram, you have Twitter. FNU's website is sort of like a semi-dynamic website. Why is semi-dynamic? You have a lot of portions where you are just viewing the information, it's just disseminating the information, and you have certain portions whereby you are interacting with it, especially when you're doing your admissions, when you're doing your enrollments, when you are hopping into Moodle. By the way, Moodle is not part, it's sort of like a connection to the website, but Moodle is a separate site of its own. Okay, so Moodle is itself a dynamic website. You are interacting with it. So that was question number 5. Question number 6, explain a client and server interaction. Question number 6, explain a client and server interaction. Now, the client and server interaction basically comes from a network architecture, and we generally call it as a client server architecture. Now, what happens in a client server architecture is whereby you have an interaction between two machines. So one of the machine is a client and the other one is a server. Our client generally requests for information and the server corresponds. A client is a user end machine and a server is sort of more like a processing end machine. So that is the client server interaction, and I've just given you the answer. Okay, by the way, this video is recorded, you can always watch it later just to grasp the simple answers. Question number 7, define XHTML. Define XHTML. X, by the way, over there stands for extensible. So you have HTML, which gives you the basic structure of web pages. And then from HTML was formed XHTML. That's why it's called extensible, extension to HTML. So XHTML, generally, it's more like a stricter version of HTML. Why? Because it is more structured, it is more disciplined, and it has a certain set of rules. All right. Question number 8, compare HTML and XHTML. So compare these two. Generally, when you're comparing, you're differentiating, by the way. Question number 8, compare HTML and XHTML. Question number 9, if I'm going too fast, do let me know. By the way, if you're using a Word document, please ensure that you have saved your Word document beforehand. Generally, before you start typing in, should save it always. Why? Just in case the power goes off, and if you're using a desktop PC or your battery is running out in your laptop, then it wouldn't, your document won't be lost. All right, please ensure to save it. Question number 9, list and explain some common rules associated with XHTML. So question number 9, list and explain some common rules associated with XHTML. Okay, so I think we've talked about this very briefly in yesterday's recording, and I've discussed the rules in there. This goes to about 5 or 6 rules. Okay, and that's what basically differentiates HTML with XHTML. So when we say that XHTML is more structured, it's more disciplined, It's a stricter version. So these rules, they enforce these strategies. All right. So question number 9, list and explain some common rules associated with XHTML. And what I would suggest is when you're listing it down, try to think of or write examples of these rules. For example, one of the rules is all your HTML elements should have opening or closing tags. Okay, so you're opening or closing text. For example, let's say heading 1. So you're opening heading 1, so smaller than sign, H1 bigger than sign, and then you're closing smaller than sign, H1 backslash bigger than sign. So that's an example of XHTML rule saying all tags should have opening and corresponding closing tags. All right, so please ensure to learn it in such a way. Question number 10, explain the purpose of doc type. Explain the purpose of doc type. By the way, doc type, you will not find it any other web programming language apart from HTML. Okay, so the main purpose of doc type is, first of all, it tells you what flavor of HTML you're using. When I say flavor, it means what version of HTML you're using. Are you using HTML1, HTML2, 3, 4, HTML5? By the way, there are many versions of even HTML3. So there's HTML 3.1, 3.2, there's 3.4, 3.5. So over the years, there has been a lot of evolutions in HTML. So when you are putting a doc type, right in the very first line of your HTML skeleton, you are basically telling the web browser, you're telling the other developer as to what version or what flavor of HTML you're using. Question number 11, compare the skeleton of HTML and XHTML. Compare the skeleton of HTML and XHTML. What are the differentiating elements? So remember, like I mentioned earlier, when you're comparing, you're differentiating. Okay, so I would suggest the best way to answer this question is for you to write down the HTML skeleton, write down the XHTML skeleton, and then do a cross analysis of both the skeletons. Once you do a cross analysis, what happens is you are able to identify very, very quickly what all are the differentiating elements. All right. Question number 12. Break down a HTML skeleton explain the purpose of each HTML element. Break down a HTML skeleton. Full stop. Explain the purpose of each HTML element. So from question number 11, you have already made you've written down the HTML skeleton. Now that's the breakdown. Okay. So now you'll explain each and every element. So what elements are there in the HTML skeleton? Identify those at first and then explain them. For example, the first one that you have is HTML itself. The second one, you have the body tag, sorry, the head tag. Inside the head tag, you have title tags, and then you have body tag. That's it. So explain the purpose of each of those elements. Question number 13, define meta tags. Now, meta tag Basically, you find meta tags in HTML5. Sometimes you have it in some versions of XHTML as well. So meta tags, generally, they do a lot of good work. They do a lot of efficient and productive work in search engine optimization. When we talk about search engine optimization, is just like to explain very simple terms. Let me just point down these words in simple terms. All right, let me put it like this. Let's say I own a website, and my website basically sells rooms of different hotels and resorts. So I use meta tags. I would use some keywords. In other words, we call them as AdWords, AD words, advertisement words, AdWords. So I would use some AdWords. I would structure my website very, very properly and carefully. And then I will ensure my website is neat, bug-free, error-free as possible. So when my website is something like that, so what I do is I contribute towards search engine optimization. So when you contribute to websites towards search engine optimization, so when somebody goes on Google search, Google search is a search engine, by the way. When you go to Google search and you'll type down Fiji holidays or Fiji hotels and resorts, so my website might pop up in the very first sets of search results on Google. Okay, so that is called as search engine optimization, whereby you are trying your very best to increase the search visibility of your website. That's search engine optimization. Now, meta tags are one of those elements which contributes towards search engine optimization. So with meta tags, you insert in the keywords in your website. Okay. Question number 14. List and define some common formatting HTML tags. List and define some common formatting HTML tags. Now, it says list. First of all, you list it down and then you define it. And the thing you must need to know here is you have two things. You have HTML tags, but not any HTML tag, but only formatting HTML tag. Now, formatting, the best way I can explain formatting to you is whatever things you can do in Microsoft Word. For example, I can go and make this text bold. I can get it underlined. I can get it italic. I can go and insert a background color. I can go and change the font color, something else. Okay, so it didn't change yet, change now. So those are all formatting features. Together with that, I can align it to center. I can align it to justify. I can align it to the left-hand side. I can give in some line spacing. Okay, so these are all formatting elements. Now, what all things are there in HTML? Now, I've just said a few. Alignment, okay, background color, font color, font type, bold, italic, underline, okay. Moreover, you have subscript, superscript. Do you know what subscript, superscripts are? For example, subscripts are, easy way to remember subscript is Superman, flies above the earth, so above the line. So I think you have it here in Microsoft. Yeah, the X to the power of 2 superscript goes above the line. Subscript, submarine, below the line. Okay, so goes underneath the line here. Like when you're typing H2O, so using subscript. Okay, when you're using X to the power of 2, that's superscript. So these are all different types of formatting tags. Okay, so you're supposed to list and define few of them from HTML. Question number 15. Lists and define some common table tags in HTML. Okay, list and define some common table tags in HTML. Now over here, I wouldn't compare this with Microsoft Word, because in Microsoft Word, creating a table is very, very easy. All you have to do is go to insert and then tables, and then insert in your number of rows and columns, and voila, you have a table. Now in HTML is quite different. Okay, so first of all, the very first tag that you could have is the table itself. So inside table, then you'll create rows. So each and every row is a row itself. Now for column, generally we have it as table header, TH. Okay, table row, by the way, is TR, and TH is table header. And after that, you have TD. Now TD is table data. So when you're trying to insert any form of data, that's where you have TD coming in. So these are some common ones. Remember, you need to list and define them. So when you're writing down TR, so you can put a dash and say TR creates table rows. TH, they create table headers. In other words, you can say columns. And then TD are table tags in HTML that allows you to place in data in the table. Question number 16. In HTML, attributes play a key role. Define attributes with an example. In HTML, attributes play a key role. Full stop. Define attributes with an example. Now, you have HTML tags, for example, paragraph tags. Okay, now that is a tag. Now, sometimes you would want to go and tweak around, or you would want to have certain type of control with attributes. Sorry, not attributes, certain type of controls with the tag. Okay, paragraph tag in this case. So what you do is you'll have to insert in an attribute and then put in some form of control. For example, I have P for paragraph, so I can put down style, which is an attribute. So paragraph, now this is within the opening tag. So smaller than sign, P tag, style is equals to color, colon, red, semicolon, and then close the tag. Okay, so that's an attribute. So that's a very simple example. Another place where I can quickly identify an attribute is when you are placing in a link. So you have a tag. Now within the opening a tag, so a and then hyperlink reference, href, that's hyperlink reference, is equal to, you'll feed in your website link, http://www.google.com / okay, and then close the inverted commas, and that's another place where you can quickly feed in an attribute. Question number 17. Give 2 reasons to insert comments with web programming languages. Give 2 reasons to insert comments with web programming languages. Now, this is very common. You can insert comments in all types of programming languages, not just web, but any. All right. Now, to insert in comments, there are many reasons. Okay, so I might be just answering the question in here. First of all, if I am inserting in comments, the next time if I would go and want to make a change with the coding, I would quickly refer to the comments and say, okay, right, this set of code does this. So the comment will give me a clear indication. Another thing, let's say there are 3 or 4 developers working on a different set of code. So the other developer is able to identify quickly with the use of comments what you have done. Okay, so those are 2 good reasons. Moreover, there are other reasons as well. It gives a definition to the code. Okay, so you are defining what the code does. Moreover, it gives you a certain set of reminders. So when you're inserting in a code, and if you're using a IDE, IDE is integrated development environment. Now, IDE applications, they basically allow you to perform different types of programming functions on them. For example, if I want to create a website, I can use Dreamweaver. So Dreamweaver is a dedicated IDE for web development. So when you're inserting in comments in an IDE, what it does, it has a different color for that specific set of line. So it makes it easy for you to go and quickly identify that, okay, this is a command and this is what the command says, this is what I'm supposed to do, or this is what the program is supposed to do. Question number 18. List some good programming practices. List some good programming practices while designing and developing a website. List some good programming practices while designing and developing a website. Now, generally, when we teach programming in computer science courses or even in information system-based courses, one of the very first things I generally tell my students is this: anyone can be a programmer, but there is a clear distinction between who is a good programmer and who is a messy programmer. Messy, M-E-S-S-Y, not the soccer player Messi, but this unorganized Messi. Okay, how and why? If you are following some good programming practices, that makes you a very efficient programmer and a very neat programmer. And by using these programming practices, these good programming practices, what it does, it makes your code look neat, one. Secondly, it makes your work much more faster in locating things at a later point in time. And moreover, if somebody looks at your code and will say, yes, okay, this person is a very good programmer, and it will be fun and it will be interesting to work with this person. Okay, so those are some of the things. Now, some good programming practices, this could include, okay, you writing down your codes neatly. Now, in web programming, generally, if I would be writing down my code in HTML, I would indent them to the right hand side. So HTML, opening and closing HTML is straight at the very left hand side of the page. And then when I put in my head tag, so that's indented bit towards the right. Body tag indented bit towards the right. So title tag inside the head tags will be again indented further to the right hand side. So those are you putting up the codes in a alignment. Moreover, where another good practice is what can be derived from question number 17, inserting in comments. When you insert comments, it makes your work very easy. Moreover, it makes work easy for others who are working with you. Okay, and likewise, there are some other programming practices that you can figure it out from your lecture notes. Question number 19. Using HTML, create a hyperlink that lands a user on Fiji National University's website. Using HTML, create a hyperlink that lands a user on Fiji National University's website. Okay, now to create hyperlinks, hyperlink and link, they mean the same thing. Okay, now to create a hyperlink in HTML, generally you use anchors. So the word anchor is generally defined by a tag. So you must have practiced this when you're creating anchors or creating links rather. You have a opening a tag and then href. Href, H is hyperlink, ref is reference. So you have hyperlink reference. That's where you put in an equal sign, double quotes, and within that you end up putting in the website address. Now, the website address has to follow the full uniform resource locator address. Okay, website address or uniform resource locator URL, it needs to be in full. Now, when you're saying website address is www.facebook.com. When you're saying URL, it's https://www.facebook.com/. Okay, that's the difference between the two. So when you're putting in a hyperlink or a link, you need to use the URL, the full form of it. Question number 20. Define CSS. Again, very much similar over here to HTML. When you're defining CSS, do not just put down cascading style sheets. You can put down cascading style sheets, but together with that, you need to give in more definitions. So CSS or cascading style sheets, what it does, it adds styling to your HTML structure, or it adds styling to your web page. Moreover, it makes your page look colorful. It makes your page look interesting, okay? Or you can say it adds life to your web page. So that is the work of CSS. Next question. Differentiate between HTML and CSS. Now, this should be easy if you have defined HTML. I think that's the very first question. Okay, and when you go and define question number 20, CSS, you should be able to differentiate between the two. However, the major point of discussion should be in terms of HTML is more of adding structure to a web page. CSS is more of adding styling or more of adding color or life to your web page. Question number 22. What are some advantages of using CSS on a web page? Should be a question mark. Okay, what are some advantages of using CSS on a web page? So what do you feel could be some of the advantages? That's what you're supposed to write in here. Okay, now the plain and simple advantage over here for CSS is that, you know, it brings life. Now, if you compare with HTML, okay, now you have coded this already in your labs, so, and even in your projects, when you just use HTML, what it does, it does give you content, okay, but it gives you a very black and white, it gives you a very non-colorful or non-styled or non-trendy content. Now, CSS makes it trendy. CSS makes it interesting. CSS makes it colorful. By the way, is there a possibility that a website could be done without CSS? Sort of, yeah, you can do a website without CSS, but you will not be able to add that many different kinds of styling or features, okay? Question number 23. List and explain three ways of using CSS. List and explain three ways of using CSS. Now, list and explain. So the three ways are the three different types of styling. You have inline, internal, and external. Now you are supposed to explain them. Okay. Now we have explained it in yesterday's summary class. Okay, what inline styling does, what internal styling does, and what external styling does. Question number 24. List down some benefits of using external CSS. So external CSS Pardon me, let me just repeat the question so that all of us are on the same page. List down some benefits of using external CSS. So external CSS is whereby you're using a separate style sheet or separate file to hook up styling to a web page. Now, the obvious benefits of it could be is you just need one page or you just need one style sheet, and then using the same style sheet, you can go and style hundreds of thousands, or if need be, even millions of web pages. Now, how? It's just that you need to insert in your external style sheet link to the head section of your website. Once your link has been correctly inserted, and it can add the same styling to multiple number of web pages. Question number 25. Compare inline, internal and external style sheets. Styling, not style sheet, but styling. Compare inline, internal and external styling. So I would suggest what's the best thing to do here is just make a small table, put down all the features of inline, put down all the features of internal and external. Now remember this, do not put down the definitions. Putting a definition is not a differentiating factor, you're defining it. You're supposed to compare, differentiate, okay? What are the differences between the three? Okay, let me just give you one differentiation, okay? Inline, you are inserting the code within the line of that HTML element. Internal, you are feeding in a style tag in between the head tags. External, you have a separate style sheet or a separate file which is linked to the web page. So that's a differentiating factor. Okay, do not give in definitions. Differentiating factors are what you're supposed to feed in. Question number 26. You're almost halfway down the line. Define HTML5. So you have HTML, you have XHTML, then you have HTML5. So define it. Okay, make sure over here you're just feeding in, you're not explaining, you're putting in a very simple definition. What I would say is with HTML5, it basically glues up all the previous versions of HTML and XHTML and presents you with a more solid and structured HTML programming, web programming language. Question number 27. How is HTML5? How is HTML5 different from XHTML or HTML? How is HTML5 different from XHTML or HTML? So we have defined HTML, we have defined XHTML, you have defined HTML5. Now then you put in the difference between these three. List 3 common goals of HTML, common goals of HTML5. Now in total, there are about 6 or 7 goals, common goals, okay? And these goals have changed the dynamics of web programming, especially with HTML, okay? So what are any 3 of those goals? Question number 29, identify at least 5 new elements that has been added to HTML5. Identify at least 5 new elements that has been added to HTML5. In fact, there are about 20 or 30 new elements that HTML5 added. So identify any 5. I think yesterday's class we discussed a few. You have audio, you have video, you have footer, you have header. Now we have head, we didn't have header. So header came in. Moreover, you have figure caption or fig caption. That's what it calls it as. You have section and so more. Okay, so at least any 5 of those. I'm not asking you to define them. I'm just asking you to identify them. Okay, just quickly go and locate at least 5. Question number 30. CSS style rules consists of selector and declarations. Should be selectors and declarations. Full stop. Define selector and declaration in relation to CSS. Full stop. CSS style rules consists of selectors and declarations. Full stop. Define selector and declaration in relation to CSS. Now, please note it is in relation to CSS. Okay. Now, do not just go up on Google and type down selector meaning and declaration meaning and then put it down. No, because the English term for the word selector is different, and so is the English definition for the word declaration. So please ensure you are doing this in relation to CSS and not common English language. All right. Question number 31. Differentiate between class and ID. Now, we had a look at this in yesterday's class. So differentiating between class and ID should be easy for you. Okay, you need to put down differentiating factors. For example, let me give you a simple differentiation. With class, when you're calling out a class in CSS, okay, you are using a period sign, a full stop sign. When you're calling out a ID in CSS, we end up using hashtags. Okay, so that's one of the difference. There are a few more that you can find out and list it down. Question number 32. Differentiate between div and span selectors. Differentiate between div and span selectors. Now, div is the short form for the word division. So div tags, generally, they add divisions, logical divisions, by the way. They add logical divisions to your website. Span selectors, on the other hand, what it does, it tries to control the HTML element in line. So this specific line, it tries to control in it. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. Try to look at some other factors. Question number 33, list and explain a way in which div tags can be efficiently used. List and explain a way in which div tags can be efficiently used. Interesting question. So how can you use div tags efficiently? Now, div tags is only used in HTML, by the way. Okay. To use it efficiently, I already set it out in question number 32. Logical division or logical separation of sections in a web page. Okay, you have a banner. So using div tags, you can put in some form of attributes and give together with the div tags, you can feed in some attributes and then create a section for banner. After that, you have the body section, and your body section, let's say, is divided into 3 subsections. So the div tags can logically allocate the sections for you. Moreover, you have a footer section. Let's say in the footer section, you have two more subsections. So the div tag can allow you to do that. Okay. Question number 34. What is PHP? Now, PHP, please do not just give in the long form for PHP, hypertext processing. Okay, please ensure that you explain what PHP is or what PHP does. So PHP allows the communication of a web page with a database or server. Okay. Question number 35. List 2 advantages of using PHP. List 2 advantages of using PHP. So there are many. The obvious ones that I could think of very easily at the moment is it's free to download and use. 1, 2, with PHP, what you can do is you can allow cross-platform compatibility. Okay, it can be used in different types of operating systems. Moreover, it gels in and combines well with MySQL databases. Okay, so these are some obvious advantages, and there are many more. Question number 36. Explain a, in quotes, responsive website. So a responsive website would be a website that would maintain its structure, that would not be scattered, that would not be tormented or distorted in different screen types or different screen sizes. For instance, FNews website is responsive. So when I say it's responsive, I know that when I open up FNews website on my mobile phone, if I would open FNews website in my laptop, let's say 17-inch screen, or in my another laptop, 13-inch screen, or in my tablet, okay, I would be very much be rest assured that the structure is maintained and I will be able to see all the contents very, very easily and efficiently. That is what you call it as responsive website. A responsive website basically comes from the term which we call it as human-computer interaction. So with human-computer interaction, it describes, or it is a study which basically describes how humans are able to communicate with computers. So from human-computer interaction comes a word called usability. So usability is how easy it is for you to use a computing device and how easy it is for you to communicate, especially with a computer screen or an interface. So responsiveness of a website comes from those terminologies. Question number 37. List advantages of using a responsive website. Question number 37, list advantages of using a responsive website. We've just talked about what a responsive website is. So the common advantage that you could figure out from the definition that I gave earlier is that the website or a website would work in any type of device. It could work in any type of screen, any screen, different screen sizes, and so forth. Moreover, your website would be neatly structured. It would not be commented. It would not be distorted despite the varying screen sizes. These are some. There are many more. So try to find out more. There are more in the notes actually. So try to find out more of it on the notes. I think week 3, week 4, somewhere it's there in the lecture slides. Question number 38. Define XML. So very much like HTML, CSS, and PHP, please ensure do not just give the long form for the acronym XML, Extensible Markup Language, but define it, okay, what it is, okay, and what does it do. Now, XML is basically a markup language as well, very much similar to HTML or XHTML. But with HTML, you have predefined tags. For example, you have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, and all the different types of HTML tags that you have, they are predefined. With XML, you create tags of your own. For example, if I want to create a tag of my own name, so what I can do is I can create it in XML. So it has that much of let's say ability, and gives you that much of liberty to actually go and have tags of your own. However, there are certain rules that you need to follow. All right, and yes, there are certain rules that you need to follow and adhere to. Question number 35. This is where I've said there are certain rules, and the next question is based on XML rules. So question number 39 is list and explain 3 rules that must be adhered to when using XML. List and explain 3 rules that must be adhered to when using XML. For example, your tags must be associated with the root node. Okay, root node is something like in HTML. Okay, when you're coding HTML, you're building up the skeleton, your root node are those 2 HTML tags, opening and closing HTML tags. So in XML, okay, you have something similar. So all the new tags that you build in, they must be associated with the root node. Moreover, all your tags must be in a order, or it must be in sequence. That means whatever things that you want, or whatever processes you want to perform, on what timing and on what order, it needs to be defined by those tags. So they need to be in order. Okay. Moreover, there are certain symbols that you cannot use in XML, and the rule says you cannot use bigger than sign, smaller than sign. You cannot use apostrophe. You cannot use codes. You cannot use ampersand signs. Ampersand signs is a fancy way of writing that end, shift and number 7 from the keyboard. Okay, the ampersand sign. Okay, so you cannot have those kind of symbols. So I've just given you 3 rules. There are 2 or 3 more. Try to find out more of them and see which one is easier for you to actually grasp. Moreover, I think I have listed down and explained the rules in yesterday's course summary video. Please do have a look at that as well. Question number 40. Identify scenarios where pardon me, just give me a second. Give me a second, everyone. Right. Identify a scenario. My apologies for that. Identify a scenario where forms could be used in a web application. Identify scenarios where forms could be used in web applications. So this is pretty simple. You must have used this in one way or the other. Sign in, sign up, comments. Sometimes when you even have to go and fill in data, so forms are definitely used. So pretty simple. Identify some of the scenarios. Question number 41. How can forms be integrated in a website? That's the question mark. And associate your answers in relation to programming languages. How can forms be integrated in a website? Associate your answers in relation to programming languages. Now, the question sounds a bit complicated. Just to make it simple for you, this is what it means. First of all, how can be forms integrated in a website? Okay, so when you're supposed to give your answer, it needs to be in relation to programming languages. So you can say forms can be inserted in a website to the use of HTML, moreover, and PHP. How? HTML basically creates the form on the front end, okay, whereas PHP allows the front end data to be fed into a server. So that's where the database comes in. The database is basically the storage for all your form data, and where need be, data is retrieved from the database and then displayed back to the front end that is on the website. So that is your simple answer for this question. I hope you understand the scenario. You have a form. Okay, let me just explain this in a very simple manner. You have a form on a website. Let's say your sign up form. Okay, so your form you've just created using HTML. So if you want your form to communicate, or to, let's say if you want your form to store data, so you need a server. More specifically, you need a database server. Now, not necessarily at a landing stage, you need to go and purchase a server, or you need to go and hire a server, or you need to get some hosting services done. No, you don't need to do that. What you can do is you can simply go and install a XAMPP server in your client computer or in your computer system. And from there, okay, try to, because with XAMPP, you have MySQL database. Okay, so using MySQL database, you can build your tables in the database. All right, so you need to ensure that your form correlates to the table in database. For example, if you have in the form you have first name, so the first name entry that is fed in by the user, it needs to store at a specific field in the table in the database. Last name, same thing. Email, same thing, in a field somewhere in the table within the database. So using PHP, you end up linking the text field from your website to the table in a database. So whenever you would enter certain data, and at the very end, when you click on your submit button or your send button or confirm button or whatever the button name is, when you click on it, all the data using PHP is stored in the table. Likewise, you can do a vice versa process of it. What you can do is from the database using PHP, you can select and get data displayed on the website. I'll give you a very simple example of this. Let's say you've done a registration on Gmail. So registration is same as sign up. So when you sign up, you would enter your full name. You will enter the required email address that you want to have, and then you click on the sign up button. Once you've done that, let's say you've signed up, you've started using it. Let's say the next time when you want to use Gmail, when you sign in, as soon as you sign in, it will say, welcome, and then your name. So where does your name come from? It comes in from the very first form that you've inserted. Now, where from the form, remember? It went into the database. It's stored in the database, so it's pulling it out from there. Okay. Now, moreover, your email address is also pulling out from the database. Okay. So likewise, all your emails are stored in the database as well. Okay. So that's how it works. So to answer this question, how can forms be integrated in a website? So you need a website using HTML, and then you need PHP, and then you need database. So from the website, to allow data to be stored in the database, you need PHP. And from the database, data to be displayed on the web page, again, you will need PHP. That's a simple way in which you can explain. Question number 42. List at least five common form elements. List at least 5 common form elements. So what are those? Some 5 common form elements. Okay, you have text boxes or text fields, you have text area, you have radio buttons, you have selection or drop down lists, you have buttons. 5. 43. Write down, now this is going to be interesting, write down the code for a simple form. Ensure to add all possible features in the form. So all the elements that you have listed in question number 42, try to code it up into a simple form. Now form is coded using HTML, okay? And you don't need to hook it up to a database in this moment. It's just asking you to write down the code for a simple form and include a text area, a text field, radio button probably, a drop down list. You can also insert in a checkbox and you can have a button. All right, I think you're already done in some of your tutorials, or not, even if not in the tutorials, probably in your projects. Okay, so do that. Question number 44. Discuss the relationship that a form has with a database. Discuss the relationship that a form has with a database. Now, if you really want to write down the relationship between these two components, question number 41, we've talked about it. So front end data through the form is fed into the database. From the database, data is retrieved and it can be displayed in a form. Okay, so that's the relationship between the two. Question number 45. Define MySQL. Okay, if you look at how I've written MySQL, there's a lowercase y and the rest are uppercase. That's how you write down MySQL. So MySQL, again, this is a sort of a place where you need to define what it is. So MySQL is one of the commonly used databases in web applications. Moreover, to manipulate elements in MySQL, generally you use PHP. So MySQL works perfectly well and it's more popular with PHP than any other type of programming languages. It is free to download and free to use. It needs a server. Moreover, it allows you to build up connections between forms and connection between forms and databases in relation to web projects. Question number 46. List down some advantages of MySQL. Capital M, small y, SQL in uppercase. Advantages, I think I've just said a few. Free to download, free to use. Okay. Moreover, you can simply control MySQL with PHP. It has a multi-platform compatibility. Moreover, when combined with PHP, it builds up a cross-platform capability. When you talk about cross-platform capability, it's just like when your server is hosted in, let's say, in Linux, you can use it in Mac and in Windows. If your server is hosted in Windows, you can use it in Mac and Linux. So that's cross-platform compatibility. Okay, allows you to have communication and interaction between different types of operating systems. In fact, I have just answered the next question for you. Okay, the next question is explain the term cross-platform compatibility. Okay, so it's just like saying that you are able to process or communicate with different types of operating systems. Okay, that's cross-platform compatibility. And you can give examples. Okay, for example, you have a database in Linux. You can use it via a Windows-based operating system. You have a database in Windows, you can use it via a Linux-based operating system. Now, 48 to 52, this is where you will find things a bit challenging. And at the same time, I would want you to focus on this. Okay. Now, I'm not telling you to focus on this for no reason. There's a specific reason why I'm asking you to focus on this. So if you're able to get that hint, it's good for you. Okay. So first of all, for question number 48, code the connection between MySQL and PHP. This is, I think, in week 4, you have a lecture and you'll be able to find the codes. I think week 14 lecture, something it says. Here, sorry, week 13, here, this one. Under week 4, you have lecture week 13. In it, slides 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, that's where I have derived the questions from 48 to the next couple of questions. Okay, so code the connection between MySQL and PHP, question number 48. Question number 49, code and create a database in MySQL using PHP. So you are supposed to create a database in MySQL using PHP, the same few sets of lecture slides. Okay. Question number 50, code and create a table within the database in MySQL using PHP. So first of all, you have created the connection. After the connection, you have created the database in MySQL. Now, database is basically a list or group of tables. Okay. So within the database, when you go and create a table, now you can name the table to anything you want to, your choice. Okay. But learn how to create a table. Okay. Within the database in MySQL and using PHP. Question number 51, code and insert data in the previously created table. Question 50, code and insert data on the, should be in the previously created table. Question 50, using PHP. So you build up the connection, you have created a database. Inside the database, you have created the table, and in the table, you are inserting in data. So code and insert data in the previously created table in question number 50 using PHP. And then a big sigh of relief, the very last question, code and select data from question number 51 using PHP. Code and select data from question number 51 using PHP. Now, I will make all of this in bold because I'm putting a keen emphasis on this. Okay. Now, here's the thing, and I'll be very frank with you. Not all developers know all these codes by heart. Okay, they don't have it on their fingertips. They don't have it in their brains straight away. Okay, in fact, even top programmers, or even very efficient programmers, they have templates done for this, and then they go and work on the key elements. Okay, so there's a likely chance if these questions are going to be tested, okay, is mostly going to be tested in your assignment section. All right, so don't panic about this. Okay, try your very best to learn these concepts, but most likely, I'm saying likely, remember, I'm not promising you that it will come in the assignment section. It may, some of these elements may even come in multiple choice or true and false. It's very common, by the way. Okay, so these elements might pop in there as well. So that's why I'm telling you to go and learn this, and do not just completely rely that this will be tested in the assignment section of your online final exam. Okay, so learn this properly. Okay, refer to the templates. Okay, and learn those things which are editable. The templates will remain the same. For example, majority of the things in these would remain the same. It's just that you need to go and change some key elements. So learn those key elements very, very well. Okay, everyone? Okay. All right, so that finishes up the revision questions for CIN 6 to 8 summer classes 2021 and 2022. Is there any questions or any queries from anyone? Any questions or any queries from anyone? No? Okay, if there aren't any questions or any queries, I thank you for your patience. It's close to more than 1.5 hours now. So thank you for giving in your patience and giving in your time to attend the class. And I wish you all the very best for your online final examinations. And I do hope that all of you are able to get a good and interesting mark in your online final exams. I guess somebody was seeking to ask a question. Rajni, is that you?
Sir, I'd just like to ask you, have you proofread the final exams?
Have I proofread the final exams? Actually, I have made the final exam paper. So
Okay.
the final exam paper at the moment has gone for moderation with the HOD. By the way, our HOD is Mr. Anil Kumar. So it's gone for moderation. So I don't think there will be much problems with the final exam papers.
Okay, thank you.
So, so that's why I've carried out the course summary myself, okay, and also the revision questions. All good?
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajnil. Any other questions from anyone? No. Okay, if no questions, this is where we'll conclude the class for today. Once again, thank you for your time, and also try to manage your time well. You have very limited number of days, and you have a major project and also a online final exam to attempt. So all the very best. And should there be any questions or any queries later onwards, feel free to drop me an email or message me on Moodle, or also you can drop me a message in Viber. I think dropping a message in Viber is a bit more easier and faster. So yeah, I'll be happy to receive questions on that. Till then, everyone, take care, stay safe. Goodbye.